Okay, excellent. We're back. So I'm going to jump straight in today. So over to our guests to introduce themselves and tell us something about where they are right now.
Hello, it's so nice to meet all of you and join you on your boat trip. So my name is Renate Kratochvil, which is good to have on a recording because I know most people in the practice community struggle with my surname. And I don't have a hat, but I'm happy to join your boat trip. I live on the seaside and then I realize I really need to buy a hat. I live in Stockholm in Sweden. I've moved here just in October. And I don't know if you knew that, but Stockholm is located on different islands. So it's also called the Venice of the North. And before that, I've been to Norway, to Oslo and Bergen. So I really need a ship so I can go along the coast. While I'm actually from Austria, which is a landlocked country. And my colleagues always said your fascination from ships comes from having lived 30 years in a landlocked country. So I totally support that. So yeah, that's me. I'm a scholar in strategy, practice, and process, and it's really an honor to be on a practice theory boat with all of you.
No worries. Thanks, Renate. So can you tell us a bit more about what you do?
What I do is I mainly do research in strategy, and I use a very broad practice lens and process lens to engage in the micro activities of those people running around in organizations, employees, team leaders, managers, top managers. And I find it highly fascinating to follow them over years. So in Norway, I've been collecting data for 4 years in a construction company, like in the R&D department, in the strategy department, in the top management, and also on the construction sites, and spending all this time with the people. And that's why I like the practice perspective so much, to see like, what are these people doing and how does it repeat and how does it in the end connect to the strategy of the organization. And I also think it's a lot of creative work to find these connections and follow them and be curious and ask all these questions that they sometimes get very annoyed with because they have to answer them. So you asked me what I'm doing. So that's what I've been doing the last years. I'm in a process of trying to tell my stories about what I've seen and connecting this micro activity level with some more company level outcomes.
That's excellent. Yeah. That makes me think about hard hats, because obviously we have a fascination with hats, so maybe that's part of the story. But anyway, I'm gonna pass over to our hatless pirate.
Actually, I was wearing a hat while collecting data, but that was for the construction side, so that was for safety reasons.
There's a hat for every activity. Right, over to you, Manuel.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for this. Yeah, so we are wondering, where did you first encounter practice theory?
Actually, during my postdoc, or actually not while being in a university position. So to go back to this, I have my PhD in international business and I have a monography. So I haven't been working very much as the typical career track that you follow in academia and that you have a lot in the UK, for example. So I was just writing a monography on multinational corporations. And there I was working with micro foundations. And I totally didn't get that. That was like too abstract for me. And I didn't understand why that's called micro, because I thought it was still very macro. So I couldn't really follow that. So that was not my thing. And then I left academia for 2 years to work in a teaching school. But there I was still engaging with the research literature because we needed that. And then I learned about the special issue in Strategic Management Journal on strategy practices and processes. And I remember reading about analyzing what Steve Jobs is doing on the stage and how that connects to strategy. And I was like, yeah, wow, this is what I'm thinking. This connects to me. This is exactly what I'm doing when I look at people. This is what I'm seeing. These like super tiny micro things that people do and how that connects to bigger organizational activities or outcomes. And then I started applying for postdoc positions. not even knowing that I'm going to be a practice scholar at some time, or belonging to the community at least. And then I started my postdoc, and the only target I have was to collect data. And it was totally my choice how to do that. And I just followed my I think it's the ontology, or however you want to call it, or epistemology, that I have very deep in my heart. And I had no idea what I should be doing. I was just thrown into this company. And then I started collecting data with an ethnography, never having done one before. And I just followed everything that people were doing and saying, and I noted down everything. And then I continued reading more practice research, and I realized how well everything connects. So that's how it actually started. And that's how I encountered practice theory, only through reading and feeling connected to it.
Interesting. And so what attracted you to it? Is it this sense of linkage, possibility of linking levels of analysis, so to say, or something more?
Yeah, it's the linking, but also like I have such a great interest in what people are doing, and to observe it, and to see what they're not seeing about their own doings, and connect it to the wider. So we had, but that only happened later, that we had Davide Nicolini as an adjunct professor at BI, where I was before. And then I started reading what he was doing. And there's this study of his where he talks about the nurses who picks up the phone in the hospital to talk to a client, and how much that is a practice, but that can only happen because of the special setup. If there was no phone, no patient could be calling. And I mean, I'm in the strategy context, but it's like, I just like thinking about everything we see in a company in these like spheres, this like everything that they do, they can just do because these things are there. And I just like these thought processes, and challenging myself in what I'm seeing, and also challenging them and saying, why do you do this? And how do you connect to all these materials and objects you are having here? So I just find it highly fascinating. I'm not sure if that's any useful to anyone, but I find it very interesting, and I'm very curious about it.
I'm sure it is. And
I hope so.
In your project, what practice theoretical ideas are you working with, maybe more precisely?
So one project I have been working with Davide Nicolini is on emotions, and that we're looking at the practices of how individuals in a team express and mask and hide emotions, positive and negative ones, and how that over time leads to the failure to implement an idea that they had. So that's what I'm trying to explain. It's a long journey, many ups and downs, many iterations of coding and looking at the data. So that's one. And the other one is I have started a project on Taylor Swift. So I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. And I have started to analyze her practices of strategy and art to explain how she's creating a market to normalize female emotions. So you can disagree or agree with me on that, because I know that many see Taylor Swift as somebody who is also just putting up a performance. But for us Swifties, she has really, really done a lot. And I'm really fascinated, like according to the strategy textbook, she does everything right. But many people do that. Many promise do that. Many companies do. So there is something more that she's doing that makes her so popular. And I'm trying to explain that with the connecting the practices to this higher societal level of female emotions in society. Let's see if that's going to work out with taking a practice lens, and how it's going to evolve.
Thanks. On to you, Elizabeth, I guess.
Yeah. No, this is a good conversation. So I'll come on to my proper topic in a minute, but you've talked a lot about doing and people and emotions. And I'm wondering what practice theory really brings to that. What's different compared with like social theory in general? What sets it apart?
You mean what for me
For you?
sets practice apart from other theories?
Yes.
That's a really good question. So I think I need to out myself here as being very much driven by phenomena and empirics. So I don't think I can have like these very huge contributions to the practice theory itself.
No, okay. Yeah.
I see myself more as somebody who applies it. And I had a really nice discussion with Ignaz Bruder on this a couple of weeks ago, where he said in his recent JMS, he's making the methodological contribution of using it, not necessarily having a big contribution. So I think we had like lots of great scholars, including on this boat, that have developed the theory a lot. And what I think sets it apart is because it helps us to see how these are activities or practices are enacted, and over time, and I'm very much of a process person, over time create something, whatever it is, in an organization, in a team, or for this person. Okay. But it's also not a routine. It's this combination of activities and maybe also some thinkings of this person that help to move things in a certain direction. Great. And gives us the space and opportunity to talk about it in this way. I'm coming from the strategic management area, and there people talk about performance and profit and organizations. And for me, the practice lens is so helpful to explain that there's also people in organizations and they make it happen.
Great. I think somewhere on the boat we've got a lens of practice, but don't think I can put my hand on it just yet. Anyway, it should be useful. Okay, now, so you mentioned being part of a practice community, and I'm, as you can see from the hat, I'm an anthropologist today. So I'm interested in tribes and social groups and things like that. So how are you do you feel like you're part of a tribe?
I feel like I'm part of the strategy as practice community.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I feel I'm part of very much. Yeah.
So that, and any other tribes? I mean, you're a Taylor Swift fan. Is that a tribe?
I haven't so far discovered so many other academics writing on Taylor Swift, but I started sharing my idea and I realized that people are excited about it, which excites me. So I think I'm mostly part of the strategy practice community and the strategy process community.
Okay.
And I mean, I've been visiting Warwick Business School a couple of times, and there is also some other practice scholars in other areas.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm part of a tribe, but maybe a guest of some tribes.
So you're not on your own?
No. And I mean, I work with David. I guess he is part of a different tribe. So I'm connecting to other tribes.
There's a lot of tribes out there. Great. Well, we're coming to an end now. And we'd like a souvenir of our visit. Do you have something for us?
My souvenir is a lighthouse.
Great. That's what we need on our ship. Otherwise, we'll run aground.
Yeah, so I've lived in Oslo for 4 years, and it's just a very beautiful city. And this lighthouse, is it?
Yep,
was at the harbor, and the ferries will stop at that lighthouse. So I was thinking that's something you definitely
we should aim for that. Yeah. And then one final question is, where would you like us to go next?
So
is there anybody else you'd like us to visit who may be on the map, or maybe they need to get on the map? Where should we go?
I was looking at the map, and I said I'm very, very curious person, and I'm always also starting to get more interested in contexts that are underrepresented in at least the strategy literature. So I selected 3 people.
Oh, right.
One of them is very close to me. I've never met her, but I really like her work, and that's Iben Sterne from Denmark. She writes about ambiguity, and that's a concept I like a lot. And then I've put on my list Charmaine Williamson from South Africa, I have seen her before at EGOS, and I would just really like to also hear about her, because I think it's this very different side of the world that we're not too much connected with, and I think it's very important that our boat goes everywhere.
I don't think the boat's been to South Africa yet, so we could make that journey.
I think that would be super interesting, and I've also seen there is a scholar in Kenya on your map, Mavantia May, and I think it would just be so cool if you took a long trip and went to Africa and see how they're working with practices and what they're doing.
Great. Thank you very much, and that's the end of our port call.
Yeah.
Thanks for the trip.
Thanks.
I enjoyed it a lot.